working, right? And we know that there are lots of people who are not working. And how is it going? Just start us off there with how's it going for you right now? And let everyone know where you are, because they might not know that, of course.
Yeah, I'm in New York City, and it's snowy, it's cold,
Yeah.
but it's going well. I expected, honestly, when the coronavirus pandemic hit, like when everything shut down, I thought, that I was not going to get auditions again for a long time. Even when production started, I mean, for the kinds of roles that I often go out for, which is like co-stars and stuff, I thought, oh, they're gonna like do away with those. It's gonna just be like very intimate, the series regulars, and that's it. And that has not been the case. It's actually been a lot of auditions, which has been great, and it's kept me very busy. And I've made accomplished many things. So it's been a mixed bag, I think, like as it is probably for most people, the pandemic. But overall, I've been impressed and proud of kind of the progress I've made in this time. So
Awesome. That's really good to hear. I know a lot of actors can be stressed of like they're not putting in enough work, or they're like they can reflect back on them. I should be putting in more work because every little opportunity that's out there I should be chasing. So I just appreciate that you've kind of come to a place of comfort, it almost sounds, with where things are. Is there anything that you can attribute self-care wise that you think does that? I like to start there sometimes for us, because it's a place often actors can overlook as a huge part of their career, I think. Do you
yeah.
attribute it to anything?
I mean, I've tried to keep up like working out. I think I mean, it's hard when it's like this cold, and like I do not want to get out of bed most days, but I think that's been, I think, very important. Like moving, because usually I'm like, New York actors are usually like running around from one place to the next on the subway all day, and it keeps you. There's this hustle and there's this vibrancy to being in the room. I mean, I'm in rehearsals for a Zoom play reading now, as I'm sure like every actor is, literally, and 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 it's just not the same. It's cool. I'm glad that we have this, and I've seen some great stuff and been a part of some cool stuff, but it's just not the same as being in the same room. And
Right.
I think so often for those of us who are in New York, who are actors, or pursuing acting, even if you're not booking, the stuff that you would love to be booking, you can always find some way to like gather with friends and read a play or do something that's creating the art, even if it's not about booking, and that's just harder to
Or
do now.
see a play, or even see a play. I feel like
Right.
which is acting, but still feels like there's something right. Yeah, totally hear you.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
that's hard. And I think finding ways to connect with people has also been a saving grace for me, I think.
Got it. Good. So I want to just talk about your journey right now, because I know so many people are like shocked. Like, what do you mean in the middle of the pandemic you had 15 meetings? It's 15, right?
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
was, well, it ended up probably being more than that. I've stopped counting.
Okay. Great. Well, I stopped counting. I'm just so fabulous. Great. I love it. So tell me a little bit share the results. Tell the story of how you landed your manager. And I'm sure I'm going to want to interrupt you 1,000 times and ask you to go deeper. So just start us off. Tell us a little bit, like, how did you got a manager and an agent, or how did it work?
Yeah, I have a manager in New York and I have an agent in Atlanta, and those were not things I had before.
Okay.
I already have an agent in New York who I really like, so that was not needed, thankfully.
Okay.
But yeah, I to be honest with you, I had kind of decided on a different manager at first, because it was one of the first meetings I had, and I was like, I'm going to go with this person. And then I got an email from this other manager over the weekend, and we kind of corresponded over the weekend. And what made me, at first I was like, I have to be honest with you, I've met someone. It's like, I feel like you're dating.
Yes. I'm already
I'm,
dating someone.
I'm already, yeah, right. I've met someone, and but we talked more, and what ended up kind of making me realize that this person was the right one, especially after meeting him, was that he represents several of my friends and several actors who I really admire in New York.
Right.
People whose
Right.
careers I'm like, wow, and they're not even famous people. Like, this is not people they're just people who are either in my network or expanded network, who I'm just like, oh, that person has a really cool career. And so, it was a very hard decision between these two people, but that really swung it, that, okay, these are people who he's really helped shape their careers, and he can hopefully do the
Yeah.
same thing for me.
So before you got to that point, now walk us
Yeah.
through how you even got to that meeting. Tell us how that all started. So maybe you want to paint a little bit of the lay of the land before. So what I love about what you said is you already had an agent in New York that you loved, right?
Yeah.
And so you used this process to find a manager in New York and an agent out in the Southeast, which is totally awesome. Like I don't think a lot of I think some actors are like, maybe I should get an agent in the Southeast. Is there even a way to do that? So I love that this worked for both of those things. So tell us a little bit about like how you actually got to that meeting. Like tell us the process of walk me through a little bit of the agent goals process, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the agent goals process, what I loved about it is it starts with this like very deep dive where you basically examine all the things in your life that led you to becoming an actor, and kind of very introspective, and you kind of share your story with close friends. And so I did this, none of whom were actors. I was like, I'm going to not do any actors, and
Right.
share this story and with with four friends. And these were people who I've usually, most of whom I've known for a long time, and who didn't necessarily know like how seriously I took acting, or they didn't. It was so fascinating to do that experience with them over Zoom, to have that experience where I really shared kind of everything that has led me up to this point and what I'm looking to do in the future. And it's funny, I went back and watched that Zoom a few weeks ago and was just like, I was very impressed, very impressed with myself.
Were you? Oh my gosh. So I want to make sure for everyone who's listening, they kind of understand. So inside of this process, you wrote the story of what it meant for you to be an actor and the experience of being an actor, and you shared it obviously via Zoom, because we're talking about this during the pandemic, with four friends of yours, non-actors. And so I just want to and so what did it give you to share your story in that way?
One of my friends, he was like, bro, I'm watching this and I'm just like, your success is inevitable.
Yes.
That. And I was like, I mean, this is someone I've known he's like a brother to me. He's like an old friend of mine, and I saw, and I was just like, wow, it just was so validating. Because I think sometimes, we kind of hide from being an actor. We kind of are like, oh, but we can kind of have that shame or that like weirdness around it.
I mean, hello. I mean, Shawn, you're speaking like everyone. I feel like, oh, what do you do? I'm an actor. I'm an actor.
Yeah.
Or, but I do this right now, or I'm this right now. But I'm like that. Even that question, I've had coaching sessions with clients where they say, I just want to know what to say when someone asks me what I do. Like that was the session was only about that, because they would bring up so much malarkey that isn't real, but you feel very judged in that moment. So I love that you're saying that it gave you this really big validation in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was cool to be vulnerable about how it's hard, and also um to share some of my successes. And yeah, so doing that, it was just great to have that bear witness, or born witness, or however you say that.
Yeah.
um
Yes.
and,
Born witness. I like it. Right. But what I think you're saying, what I like about what you're saying about the bear witness is, I think it is so important that Brené Brown says you can either be owned by your story or own your story.
yes.
And I think that what we're doing here is it's a way of you owning your story. And so much of what an actor thinks their story is, what did I most recently book is that's my story. What I most recently booked is my entire story.
Yes.
And when actors reduce themselves to the receipts, it is not the truth of who they are as a talent. And I think it's so easy for us to do that, right? It's to ourselves. It's some kind of perverse way of hating on ourselves, And so I think that what you're saying is how you reimagined this. So from the story, what came next for you?
To be honest, I got really busy, and I kind of didn't do anything in the program for several weeks, and then I
Wait, I
had
think I remember this. I think I remember you sent a message or you posted like, I've been absentee, or like I left for a second. Was any of that having to do with the story, or was it just being busy?
it was just being busy.
Great.
It was,
Cool.
yeah, I know the story. No, it was, and we know one great thing about the program is you go at your own pace, and you're a big proponent of that. And so
Right.
everyone, that's one great thing that I appreciate about it. but I kind of had this like rampage around the time of Thanksgiving, I think, where I just
Okay.
was like, I'm gonna finish this. And I
Did
and I just went crazy. I like got everything together. I drafted the email. I did everything that, got all my materials together. What made and just had everything ready to go. And I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And I just it just was like and I think it was driven by multiple things. I think I had really wanted to get everything out before the end of the year. And
the year. Great.
that was
Great.
for me, not a deadline you said or anyone else said. It was my own thing.
There's two things that you said, Shawn, that I just want to underline for people. One is that you can do things at your own pace. And the trick of this is that I actually believe you need to do this at your own pace, reaching out for managers and agents, particularly if you're going to do the agent goals process, which is the program that you did with me. And that's because you're going to be going through self-growth, and you can't decide on a timeline how you're going to feel about that. So even though you were like, yeah, I just took a break because I got busy, like that story was doing its own magic inside of you after that, when you were busy and right. And the other way we do things, which you just described, which is so good, is like we can sometimes like, I'm going to get this done. Like we can do it in a frenzy. Like I'm crossing the finish line right now. And what I love about what you're saying is that both of them are okay, both abandoning for a couple weeks or whatever and like setting it down and then coming back and speeding through. So what the reason that I like this is because to me, I want this to be an experience where, at the end of this, we're talking about you going to great meetings. And if you're at the end of this thing, you're feeling like, I've just run 16 marathons and how am I going to go to this meet? Like, that's not going to be a great meeting. And so for the ability for you to move at your own pace, I think is integral for it to being successful, which is the opposite of what you might say, like, you're going to get this done in 6 weeks and then you're going to have an agent and a manager. Like that's the opposite of what you might expect. But I think that's the only way. How does that resonate for you, I guess?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It takes so much energy to do those meetings and to respond to the emails and to get rejection, which you're going to get, or to get no response, which you're going to get, like to do all of that. And so, you have to be, I had to be very ready. And I'm lucky. Or lucky, or I was able to, I felt like I was able to trust myself and to trust kind of my instinct about when I felt ready to send that, to do that. And also to trust, what another aspect of it is, there's getting these materials ready that you're going to share, and figuring out which to use. I think for a lot of people in the program is a huge part of what slows them down, and for good reason.
Yeah, right.
I think for me, I feel like I was able to rely on people who I really trust, who know my work, like who really know my work, to help me decide what to include and what not to
To
include. And
like
also,
weigh in on the self tapes you were using, that kind of, to get opinions behind it. Is that what you're saying? Right. Right.
exactly, I reached
Right.
out to people who I really trust, and yeah, so that was helpful.
Right. Also, what you're also saying, I think this is important for anyone listening, is the materials that you send. I always think like this is where you need to be in the Maserati. Like there's certain things where it's okay that you're like the footage isn't great or whatever here. Like when you're reaching out to managers and agents, like we need it to be the Maserati of your footage. And to me, like I would love to have a really high standard around like the lighting is good, the sound is good, all of those things. That's one piece of it. But the other is that you believe 100% in your acting the whole time, that these are like things that you're really solid in. And here's just like, I'm going to give a tip to everybody, because I don't know, this didn't happen for you, I don't think, Shawn, but it's happening for people a little bit more right now, which is when you send your materials out, a lot of times managers and agents are also saying, hey, will you put this on tape for me before we meet? And what it's because the manager or agent knows you put your heart and soul into making these perfect tapes. They want to know, can you turn this around in 24 hours? Can you turn this around in 36 hours? So I just want to normalize what might feel like, why are they asking me to do this? Like they've already seen me act. And some actors are getting a little confused by like, do they not watch my tapes? Like, what's the deal? Why? It's actually because they're trying to see, can you deliver in the way that I would want you to be able to deliver for me? And I actually says, whoa, that is a great manager or agent, because they have a really good taste level for what they want their talent to do. So I just want to share that for anyone who's listening to kind of understand that might be part of the process as they do this.
Yeah,
So
I also
when,
think
yeah,
I actually had an agent who I had already decided what I was going to do, and so but I did have an agent ask that, and actually I think part of what you're saying is right, and also I know because they had like basically a small list of male sides and a small list of female. I think some of it is also, it's like a standardization thing where it's like if they're able to see all their men or women, like everyone does the same thing, they can kind of, it helps them
right.
figure that out. So that
Yeah, I get
also,
what you're saying. Also, yeah, think of a manager or agent saying like, I know the scene inside out. And so when I give it to an actor, I know what I'm looking for. Yeah, totally. Yeah, to like standardized patient behavior, right? So when did you send actually? When did you send your things out?
I think it was like December 8th, somewhere around there, December
Right. First week
15th.
of December.
Yeah, yeah.
Very common time to send, right? So what I like about this is the common time to send. Lots of people I think send during that week, you know, whether they've in this program or any, I mean, there's thousands of actors reaching out to managers and agents every single day. Let's just be clear, right? And so a busy time for people to be receiving because when again, before the end of the year, people have that energy around it. Tell me a little bit about your response rate and what that was like. How many response and whether they were yes or no's, did you hear back from a lot of people?
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely heard back from many people. You know, some people it's an immediate kind of no. You know, some people, you know, there is kind of a I'm getting a lot of emails like this and or I'm getting emails like this and I'm, you know, what's the secret or what's there's that sort of there's some people who I think are curious about it.
Right.
And then I think there's also, you know, the majority I think for everyone is non-response. I think that's the normal
Right.
is no response.
Yeah. Yes. We have
And
to
then
normalize the non-response. We have to normalize the non-response as meaning absolutely nothing. Right.
exactly, and then yeah, and then a lot of requests for meetings, a lot of kind of you know, link to your actors access, please.
Yeah.
You know, tell me
But yeah,
more.
yeah, I was probably, yeah. So I have a couple questions. Do you happen to know your response rate? I know I didn't ask you to get this number together beforehand. Do you happen to know how many responses you got?
I response meaning some sort of response.
Anything, any response. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it was probably 70, 80.
Yeah, I just want to just point that out for a second because let's pretend you reached out to every manager and agent in New York for a second, which there's a 800. Okay.
Yeah.
So 70 or 80 is 10% of them. Let's just go with that for now because 10, it's easy math,
Yeah.
right? 10% wrote you back something. And so much of what I know is frustrating to actors is getting zero response. So what I love about you getting 80 is at least you have like a quorum, like a number of people you can say, here's how my materials are landing. If 80 people are responding and 15 plus are asking for a meeting, the people who are saying anything else or are even silent, I know that some of them are still feeling good about what they're seeing. Like it just gives you a sense of like, is it actually working? Right? Because that, and so I really love the idea, whatever you did, which I think is a tribute to how you wrote your email and how you did the process and whatever you gleaned from agent goals, did compel people to write you back, even if it was a no. And, you know, we talk about the 5 different responses, which is no, not right now, tell me more, yes, let's meet, or like, what's the one am I missing? I'm missing one more. Not right
Uh,
now. Not right now. Silence. Oh yeah, silence is one of the answers. To me, silence is a response. So what I love about the tell me more is that it just says, hey, I'm kind of a yes, I just need a little more information. And you said like, they're going to ask for your actor's access profile. They might ask you for a different tape. It's a very normal response. And I think so many actors can see that as, did I mess up? Did I send the wrong stuff? And it's definitely not that. I just want to kind of, that's in the land of you getting a call back. I want to just rewrite the
totally.
story around the tell me more. Yeah, good, good. Okay, so you got all the meetings and did you have them all before the end of the year?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
signed before the end of the year. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So tell us, so you had all these meetings. What was it like to have 15 or 17 or whatever number of meetings you had? What was it like to even have that many meetings energetically? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was exhausting. It was exhausting.
Sure.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's I just remember, you know, like I think there was one day where I just like didn't eat. I was like I scheduled them and it was like I was just, you know,
Back to back to back.
back to back to back to back. You know,
Okay.
it's energizing because, you know, you're talking about, you know, yourself and your career and you're meeting someone and, you know, talking about, you know, things that you love and blah blah blah. So it is fun. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
But
I
then
love what we're talking about. I had so many meetings. It's so exhausting. I mean, it's just a little bit funny to just think about like, okay, so wait, talk to me about the Shawn before this program. What would he say to that Shawn, who was like exhausted from his so many meetings? What would he have to say
oh,
to
I
him?
don't think I would have just thought it was possible. I would have been like, that's to me, that having those number of meetings is like what a famous person does when they're trying to figure out their reps. And even then,
Mhm.
they're probably only choosing between like, the PAA or WME.
Right, right, right. What
Like,
is that feeling? So tell me a little bit about Shawn before. What was Shawn doing before in terms of reps? Were you using target lists? Were you going to showcases? Was it like, I'm not going to do this for a while? What was going on?
yeah, so I had an agent earlier in 2019 who for several years, and things just weren't really working out, and that's what kind of led me to agent goals. And that agent I got through my grad school showcase.
Hmm.
So I was, lucky and grateful to have that for sure. So I've never done any of the meet and greets, but I have tried referral. I've tried like having a friend, introduce me to their rep and do that sort of thing. And
How did that go? Tell us about that. Because
um,
I just want you to know, I think it is like the trap of all traps. So I want to know what your perspective, what your experience has been like.
I think it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. I think what's even if your friend is similar in many ways to you because you're friends and you have similar values or whatever, like the rep could be. Yeah, I just think it's a very inefficient way to go about it in
Yeah,
my.
that's a great way to describe it. I'd say inefficient. I also think that, and I don't know if you noticed this is, I'm glad that you have friends who are very willing to refer you. I think that's one place to be in, but it's what you say about inefficiency is like, you have no idea if that rep happens to need the you in that moment. And so what happens is so many actors are like, I'm just pursuing a referral, like you're pursuing a referral for 3 people who don't even care about you, like might not even care about you. So it becomes this, I think of it as dangerous, almost trap, where like if the referral can come easily, great, move forward, try it. But I would say don't put all your eggs in that basket. It just becomes one more person in between you and the rep. Like I feel like it's one more person to get past, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I think it makes sense that that's the route people go, and but it was never it was not fruitful for me, really speaking.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And tell me a little bit about, so referrals, and then you had the meeting from your original showcase that came through. So you had an agent for a while. And then what was your mindset around reps? Like when you stumbled upon or decided to say, hey, I'm going to do this program, were you like really looking for something, or was it like, we'll see, like what was going on for you around your relationship to getting some more management or getting another agent?
No, I was really looking for something, and what I was looking for was a relationship based on equality, and
Got
not
it.
a relationship where I felt lucky to have a rep.
Love that. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about
Yeah,
that. How did this come up for you? Was it because did your current agent kind of inspire that, or was it just because you knew that was possible for you, or?
it was my previous agent. I think I always felt like I was chasing her, or kind of I was it's like dating. I mean, nothing a relationship's never going to go well if one person always feels like they're like, hello, I'm over here, like it's like not the foundation of a healthy relationship. And so I always felt like there were even times where I had this thing where it was like, oh, I want to book this commercial so that way she'll get the commission. Like I would have that thought, which in
Oh
your
yeah,
mind,
yeah, yeah,
or like, oh,
yeah.
I want to do that so that way she'll think of me in this higher way, so that way I'll get considered, which is a horrible way to think about your acting career.
Right. And it becomes transactional, which is how we started this conversation of like, we don't want to have a transactional relationship. And so what I'm curious about it, I'm keep throwing questions at you because I'm so excited by your journey, but like the transactional quality that you wanted to remove from the relationship, how were you sure with this new person that wasn't on the table? How were you sure that you wouldn't show up with that and that they wouldn't? Because I think that's something the actor can bring to the table. I don't think it's just on the manager age. I think we bring this baggage to the door and say, hey, do you like this baggage? Because I'm going to bring it to every conversation.
Well, I have two thoughts. One is it helps to tell them up front that I don't just have you, I have someone else who I'm very seriously
Hey,
considering.
I love it.
It changes the power dynamic, I mean, frankly.
Yeah.
But I think otherwise, we actually talked about it uh, very upfront with each other in the first meeting. We said, I actually brought it up. I said,
Yeah.
I'm that this is what I'm looking. I'm looking for a kind of a manager that I feel like I can reach out to anytime, that I can, have. And it was very clear that that's what this person was also looking for. And
Got
and also, I reached out to a good friend of mine who I did a show with, who's also repped by this person, and she was like, "He's a dream, he's like no drama, no like yeah."
it.
So that also I was able to suss that out, I think.
Right.
Oh, but I think it's important to just say that, to say, this is what I'm looking for, a relationship based on equality. Like I think it's okay to say that. Um,
Yes, I think it's totally okay to say that. And also, it lets me, the manager or agent, know, oh, I'm not in this alone. I actually
yeah.
feel less alone when you say that. Like I say, this person's going to show up for their career in the same way that I'm going to show up for their. It makes me feel more a part of something, not less able to do my jobs. It makes me feel more compelled to do my job. So, did you feel like the way that you shared your email, and I'm remembering a little bit of your email because I remember your email had, didn't we have something I don't know if you want to share anything about it, but I remember that your email had a really unique beginning to it. And I'm sure that brought people in. Are you laughing? Why? Did it have a crazy beginning
Well,
to
because
it?
we changed, we it did have a unique beginning, and then I actually got rid. Well, originally it was something about Biden. It was something, and then
Oh
and then
yeah, and I was like, I don't know if you can say this or what did I loved you saying it, but I was just like, I'm not sure, like if this is your first conversation with them, like where do we land on that? Did we go somewhere else?
oh yeah, we struck that. We struck that
Okay.
for good reason. And then I don't even remember how it started after that. I'll have to. I don't even remember. But yeah, it was. I did include a photo of
Right.
me as a
Eh,
child, which
Yes,
was
that's right. You did include a photo of you, which you never would have done in the past, I bet. Oh, sorry, you
wonderful.
guys. There's peacocks squawking outside. If you hear peacocks squawking, it's because there's wild peacocks in Pasadena, in case you guys didn't know that. So there might be one squawking outside. Um, right. You included your photo of you as a child, which is a super adorable photo. I'm sure that's the reason this worked. You should have just sent childhood photos to everyone and then it all works, right?
Exactly.
Um, when you were going to the meetings, I'm curious if you felt like it was already a yes. Like, what was the energy like in the room?
In
Or
my
did you have to,
opinion, if
yeah,
someone is meeting with you, they're gonna you already have them. I've literally never heard of someone having a meeting and then that rep not being actually interested in moving forward. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but
right,
I
sure.
think in my experience, it's usually a yes, unless it's not a yes.
Right.
Like
Right. I always feel like a meeting is, I always tell actors that the meeting is verification that you're who I think you are. Like what you've presented in your materials, I'm just like, okay, great. Are you really what your ID says? Because this is what your ID said so far. Right. And then that's where I think it's so important for you, the actor, to be clear what you want, which is what you said. I want a relationship based on equality. And yeah, what you made a big sigh face. What did that mean?
Yeah,
What?
no, and it's just, it's so important to know that and I wouldn't have known that, but unless I had that previous agent relationship that didn't work out. I think I had to go through that to be like, okay, I know that this is not what I want,
Right.
and I had, but yes, I'm a big proponent of that, because I think so many actors feel like, well, it's like, well, at least I have this person as an agent. Like, that's true.
I
It's
guess I oftentimes know when someone is like, I have an agent, I don't know if I should leave them. I go, when's the last time you got an audition? A year and a half ago. You don't have an agent. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, but I also will say I am a person who believes in love. So I'm most often interested in saying, can you renew your vows or is it actually divorce? So I'm very much for the repair. Or is your side of the street clean? Can you give it 4 months to mend this relationship? And if not, then maybe it's time to go. But if you're sitting there and you just cannot right your mind, if you cannot bring a generous and positive assumption to the actions that your agent is taking or what you imagine about them, then that's about you. You can either do the work on your own or you can look for somebody else. That's kind of where I go with that. So I have a question. If you had to identify one part of the agent goals process that helped you the most, what would it be?
Oof, that's a good one. There's so many. I go back to the actor's story. I think, I think crafting a very solid email, I think there's other places you can probably learn how to do that. I think I write a pretty good email myself regardless, but I think the actor story and going on that journey and kind of another big goal for myself in 2020 was kind of vulnerability and being more vulnerable generally, um and that was an area that I struggled with, kind of being vulnerable with friends about this part of my life, and not friends who are not actors,
Right.
and so that forced me to do that. And I think in a gentle but also forceful way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that way you said that, it's easier for us with our actor friends to bring that vulnerability because they kind of get it. And so then we're missing an entire part of ourselves experiencing what it is like to own your story. And so that's such an important way that you just said that. So and also what, it sounds like you may have touched on this, but what did you learn about yourself in this process, do you think?
Oh, I think one thing I really learned was, um, I have to, you know, making sure and checking with myself that I'm maintaining a high or a adequate level of like feeling of self-worth is
Mm,
important. And I think there's times, even when I was in the midst of deciding between who to go with, where there's that side of me that I think is very eager to just go with the easy solution, and just because, and I think that comes from thinking, well, maybe I don't deserve better. and i think
mm,
and I think, so I think that's something that the program, I think, does a really lovely job with, is that everyone deserves, agent manager is a business relationship essentially, and and we deserve relationships of all kinds that are based on equality and based on mutual respect. And I think it's sometimes easy for me to forget that, or to and so I think I've noticed that, and I noticed that when I was trying to figure out who to go with and figure that out.
yeah. I also hear, because what I hear and what you're saying also is this, we have to reinforce that idea, because our habit, the neural pathway we have is like, try to get an agent. Let's see if they'll like me. Will they pick me? Will they choose me? And it's just, and it's this, and it's also, I think, a strong part of the collective consciousness with actors is like, it's hard to get an agent, and it's supposed to be hard, and we must sell ourselves, and I have to puff myself up to get them to like me. And so much of what you said is the reason why this worked for you is because it was about owning who you are,
Yes.
not saying I need to be different. I need to have more on my resume. I need to be just exactly as I am and have them say yes. Like, I love that. It's almost like your word for the process was equality. It almost feels like, I love that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
What a
To-
great year for that to be your word.
that's
Um,
right.
so there are probably a lot of actors, and we'll wrap things up with this. There are probably a lot of actors who are listening or watching and who were where you were at the beginning of this. And what would you want to say to them in terms of any of this?
Well, I think the journey for every actor is so different and so unique, and I noticed this when I talk to my friends, my dear friends who are actors. And so I think only you will know if you're ready to find reps, or to find new reps, or to do any sort of program, whether it's this or anything else. And you know that's important to figure that out yourself. And I think that's, um there's no, it's not like becoming like an electrical engineer or something, where I feel like this may be, I may be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure there's like a pretty clear pathway for becoming an electrical engineer. Acting is, who knows, we're all a mess, we're all trying to figure this out, like, and so there's no one way. This was what worked for me, and I think has probably worked for a lot of people. But I would say, yeah, I think there, you have to figure that out, and there's a lot of people who are able to support you, and that's one thing nice about the groups that you have.
Thanks. Thank you for saying that. I say that one of the things that people never expect, I think, through this process is the amount of vulnerability it takes beyond just the work. Right? There are two different things. Vulnerability and like doing work are actually not always the same. Like, I have to actually make a database or write an email, which isn't the same as like, oh, I have to put myself into the email.
Yes.
Writing is like, so, right. So there's that journey there. And what I'm hearing you speak to as you say this is, everyone's journey is going to be different. I love when you said that only you is going to know if you're ready. And part of the way that I translate that, and we may differ in opinion here, and you'll tell me, is you have to be, in my mind, I kind of hate the word ready. I may use it at times, but I think you have to have the willingness to see things differently, the willingness to put yourself out there, the willingness, right? And sometimes I think that for actors particularly, I have a fear around the word ready being like, I must have 6 more credits and I must have 6, this headshot has to be perfect. And like that ready is like that's not the ready that you're speaking to. The ready you're speaking to is a much more like, I'm making a gesture of like putting my arms out. I can't describe it. It's like the presence of ready, which is different than the, do I have my box ticked? My
100%.
box ticked.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you talk a lot in the program, or at least a little bit, about like limiting beliefs. And I think there's so many actors, myself included, have that, minimizing, very kind of, it happens all the time. Even in social settings, you tell people you're an actor and they're like, oh, what have I seen you in? And for a lot of us, the answer is like, well, nothing really. I mean, like, yeah, but like
nothing. But also, I make my living doing this, or nothing. But actually, I'm working a lot. You have no idea, because that's not whatever. And Nicole Kidman is not the only actor in the world.
Right. Yeah. Like that person's not asking the best question, so we can give them some grace,
Right.
But we have to figure out a better answer to that question. We have to figure out a better way to talk about. So, and I think, yeah. So we so often do that, where we just minimize what we do.
I feel like our conversation came full circle, because I think we kind of started here, which is like, when that person asks that question, we are so ready to turn that question into a weapon against ourselves.
Yes.
Our actors are so ready to turn that, like, oh, what am I doing? Like, you're right, I'm an idiot, right? As opposed to granting that person grace of, oh, they're actually just trying to show interest in my career, and that's the way they ask. So let me help them. They need a little educated here. So I really appreciate that. Shawn, I'm so grateful for this time that you gave us to talk about this. I want people to be able to follow up, like to follow you. Do you want to share your Instagram handle or anything like that for people to keep in touch?
Sure. I'm not very good at Instagram. I'm better at Twitter. I'd love to get some Twitter.
Great. Oh my gosh, Twitter, perfect. I'm not on Twitter at all, so perfect. You can be the Twitter person.
Yeah. Twitter and Instagram, it's at Shawn Jain, ShawnJain. So, follow me. I should get better at Instagram. We'll talk about that later. So
okay, perfect. We'll save that for another next program or something.
Save that for another program.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Keep doing great with your new reps. Let us know. Wait. Coda. You did this again for the Southeast? Did you just do the same? How did that work for you?
No, I broke your rules.
You did them at the same time.
I did, but here's the thing. I spent, and I've been kind of splitting the pandemic between here and Nashville, which is where my family lives now. So okay. I've been spending a lot of time there, and so I felt kind of justified, because I literally have. I'm not one of those people who like, I have an address in the South. Like I do have an address. My mom. Right. Yeah. So
gotta pretend local hire. You're a real local hire.
Yeah. Right. So, and I did tweak things a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Very little. Literally just the PS.
Right.
So
you sent to Southeast and New York at the same time.
Correct.
Great. Oh my God. Awesome. But using basically the same materials to everybody.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened. That's so awesome. Good to hear. The reason why I like to say that is because there are some people who may think like, I don't know, I want to look at another market, and they think that maybe it's not going to work for them to use this process in another market, or like if it's not the one that they live in, or they get so scared around like, how am I going to tell them I don't live there? And like, it's actually, that probably came very organically. Was it very easy in your meetings?
It was, and it was. And also, yeah, I mean, you have to like, prepare for that answer, prepare for that question, because you will get it. And make sure you have an answer, and don't be weird about it. Like have an answer that.
I actually think the fault of the worst answer to have is to be weird about it. I think that the most direct answer will always make them have more confidence in you. So even if it is, I live in New York City and I can get to Nashville within 24 hours, or I go down every 2 months, that the more direct and black and white you are in your answer, the more their person's like, oh, great. Like, but if you get weird, then they have to get weird, is what it feels like to me.
Totally. And the reps in the Southeast are not unfamiliar with this. They know actors come from LA and New York to work in their market, and some are okay with it and some are not. And you're not going to want to sign with someone who's not, unless you actually do live there full time. And so, it's better to get that out of the way than to lie and then, be hiding don't do that. It's never good to start off a relationship with the reps with dishonesty.
Right. So sad. So well said. And I think so many people feel like I need to make it sound like I'm always available to be in the Southeast every single day. And it just makes the person be like, you're not believable, because that's not possible. Like it actually deflates the belief in what you're saying. thank you for that coda. I wanted to just cover that for people trying to think about other markets. That's really helpful for us. And thank you again for today. This was so helpful for us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. We will see you on Twitter and on Instagram, Shawn Jain.
That's right.
All
Take
right,
care.
okay. Thank you. Be good, Shawn. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.